This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual. Ladies and gentlemen, the host of WEBIT Virtual, Dr. Plamen Russev.
Hello and welcome to another program of WEBIT Virtual, the Thought Leadership Network, the #1 global network where the beauty of all minds get together so we can exchange thoughts and ideas for creating the desirable future in a collaborative manner. Today we shall be talking about blockchain and crypto, and I have some truly amazing people who will join me in our virtual studio. Saying the studio, we are in this beautiful studio that has been created by our partners from the virtual show. We'll be talking about how blockchain can improve our lives. I'm not going to use the actual title here because it speaks about crisis. And as Churchill used to say, you should never miss the opportunity to take advantage of a crisis. So I think the people that we invited today shall be showing you in a great way example of how to take the opportunity and to turn it into a wonderful result. Why do I care? Because there is one thing that really matters, and this is our freedom. The freedom is at the top of everything that we do at WEBIT because it's the foundation of every endeavor that we take, whether it's curiosity, whether this is all about giving back to the community, stewardship, leadership. It's at the end of the day about freedom. And this is the freedom that we shall be talking to today. Because I believe that whatever we do, if we don't guarantee that our children shall not be prisoners of their own private data, we screw up. And we should not allow that. And the people who will join that studio, I'm sure share that ideas. And without further ado, I would like to introduce you the first and our main guest of honor. Someone has done quite fantastic and amazing things in his life. Ladies and gentlemen, here's our guest.
Thank you, Dr. Russev. Is that me?
Yes, but just give me a second because currently we have a video for you that tells your story, your fascinating story, which is investor best known as the Bitcoin Jesus, the Jesus, for his promotion of Bitcoin after founding several successful companies in Silicon Valley. Our guest has begun his journey in February 2011. Years before traditional venture capital firms being involved, he became the first person in the world to start investing in Bitcoin-related startups and nearly single-handedly funded the entire first generation of Bitcoin and blockchain businesses. Roger has actually opened the first Bitcoin store in the world. Now he promotes Bitcoin Cash.
Great summary.
Roger.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Russev.
Thank you so much for having you. It's a great pleasure to be here with us, and I will be absolutely delighted to spend the next few minutes, actually quite a lot of time. We have enough time to explore your journey. And I know that in your free time, you go for the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments. That says a lot about you and what you're doing and the way you're doing it. But let's start from the very beginning. And I'm sure you have answered that questions hundreds of times. But what happened with these explosives, Roger?
So I've always been a bit of a natural salesman, and it's the most fun to sell things that you actually like. So one of the things that I liked as a young man were firecrackers. And so I found a website where you could buy firecrackers, and then I resold those same firecrackers on eBay. I didn't have any sort of special license or permit to do that, but I didn't think that you needed any sort of special license or permit to do that. And as you were talking about freedom early on, I was talking about how, well, the biggest impediment to people having more freedom in their lives is government control and regulation and bossing people around in the economy. So I spoke out against the various things the United States government was doing to, restrict the amount of freedom that people have in their lives to run their businesses and engage in their peaceful activities. And Turns out governments all over the world, whether it's the US government, the Chinese government, the Russian government, take your pick, but they don't like it when you speak out against the things they're doing. So I wound up being the only person in the entire country to be prosecuted for selling those firecrackers. And even while I was in prison for having sold those firecrackers, the company who I had bought them from, who also did not have a license, was still busy selling the exact same product. So it just shows very clearly that if you don't speak out against the government, you can do a lot more things than if you do speak out against what the government's up to. So that was more than 20 years ago now. So it's for me, it's ancient history, but I guess the internet still loves that story. So.
Yeah, I know it's history, but if you go for the first things that we find out, everyone who Googles you, that's the first story, and we say, all right, I mean, where are we getting to? But of course, I know the story, and I know that sometimes it's difficult to make the choice, which is the limitation of freedom to everything else. So let's go back to business now, and thank you again for joining us. We're absolutely grateful to have you with us. So, the most companies around the world are being forced to cut their workforce. And the question is, what is the current situation in the employment in the blockchain industry? How is it shaping and doesn't give any better opportunities?
Well, everything all over the entire world is connected to everything else, right? So some things will be affected sooner rather than later. So if you're working, at a barber shop, you're affected right away day one from the lockdown. If we're working in the blockchain industry, you're not affected as immediately because most of the stuff you're doing is online. But as time goes by and less people are, able to earn money and able to spend that money, it trickles into every single area of the world. So it definitely will affect the blockchain people. But you won't see, a lot of the effects are hidden, right? You don't necessarily see right away from day one what the effects are. So it affects everybody though, and it definitely affects the blockchain industry. And that's part of the thing. Like, people always say, oh, why is this country poor? Well, I think the better question isn't why is that country poor, or why is that place poor, or why is that person poor? It's like, why does anybody become rich? Why does any country become wealthy? Because all throughout the history of humankind, everybody's been poor. Being incredibly poverty-stricken has been the natural state of human beings. So the real question is, why do certain places become wealthy, and why do certain areas become wealthy? And so the answer to that is people have to go and actually create the wealth. They dig things up out of the earth, or grow things, or mix their labor with things that were previously unowned. And then, that creates new wealth in the world. And if people aren't allowed to do that, you're literally preventing the world from producing the things that people need. And so if printing a bunch of money and then sending checks in the mail to everybody could make the world a richer place, why does anybody ever have to work for anything ever? We could have just printed $1 zillion years ago and given it to everybody, and nobody would ever have to work again. But the fact of the matter is that doesn't do anything to produce new wealth in the world. It's just a short-term illusion or a mirage. And so we need to get everybody back out there to work, producing the food and the clothing and the houses and the medical care that people need, rather than just staying at home hiding and not doing much of anything.
So what would you like in your best case scenario? What would you like to change in the crypto world?
The biggest thing that I would like to see changed in the crypto world is there's a bunch of censorship going on, and it doesn't just affect the crypto world, it affects everything. So there was a really interesting interview from two doctors that owned 5 different hospitals or medical treatment facilities in California, and they had combined something like 50 years of experience in disease, and they were going and talking about coronavirus and their opinion and thoughts on it. And they disagreed with some of the stuff put up by the World Health Organization. And so what did YouTube do? They literally deleted this video. And the video when I saw it, it had just under 6 million views, and it had only been online a couple of days. And then YouTube now banned the entire thing from their platform. And I think if what those doctors were saying was untrue, people should make more videos debunking what they're saying. So I think the solution to people saying, crazy or wrong things is other people being able to rebut those things, not a bunch of massive censorship. And people don't realize that there's just been a huge amount of censorship going on to this very day within the cryptocurrency community. And that's just been heartbreaking for me, because when I first got involved almost 10 years ago, the entire point was to have a censorship resistant currency. And if you're busy censoring people talking about what's supposed to be a censorship resistant currency, you've missed the entire point of censorship resistant currencies. And people don't realize that the censorship is still going on to this very day. And that's been heartbreaking for me to see that happening.
I can't agree more than that with you. So I'll go now to our viewers. First of all, this is live. So if you have any questions, and I'm sure you do have a lot of questions to Roger, please use hashtag WEBIT over Twitter and ask your questions. And we will try to wrap them up. We have a special guest who shall be representing the audience here, and of course, herself. I will present her in a while. And all your questions, or at least those that we are in a position and able to ask within this 1 hour program, we shall ask them. So be active, hashtag WEBIT, ask your questions to our guests, and we shall answer them. Now, back to you, Roger. Everyone now is concerned, obviously. We see the petrol, not actually the petrol, but the crude oil, on American exchange, it just crashed down. People are really concerned about how to move next. And there are new players obviously coming up on the crypto market, because some of them might perceive this as an opportunity to preserve their wealth, actually to create more opportunities, to create more business. We were hosting Tim Draper last week. We had a phenomenal number of 12,000 of you, dear virtual attendees, here with us. Currently, we have 8,100 from what I see, 8,000 on our channel. And I would like to ask you for a very open and honest answer to what are the key qualities for the newcomers to the market for making a successful entry?
Yeah, for anything or any business, it has to solve a problem that people are having. It has to be useful to people. If it's not useful, nobody's going to use it. And so the pricing mechanism, when you see that people are willing to pay a bunch of money for something, that's a sign that they find it useful. And so like a big misconception that the public has, and I'm sure some people will try and demonize me for saying this, but like when people go and hoard toilet paper or hoard face masks or hand sanitizer, the fact that they're buying it all up in the market, that sends a signal, right? Prices transmit information. And when that signal goes out that people are buying up all the face masks or the hand sanitizer, that's a signal that people need to produce more face masks and more hand sanitizer, or ship it in from areas where people aren't hoarding it. And if you don't allow the prices to change, that signal gets blocked. So like the prices around the world are what transmit the information as to what goods are being valued by what people. And if you don't allow the prices to adjust, you're blocking them from being able to transmit the information that the world needs to know, to like, hey, go out and produce more hand sanitizer, or go produce more face masks, or go produce more whatever. And so when you see the government, politicians getting involved saying, you can't sell hand sanitizer at this price, or you can't sell face masks at that price, like they're literally blocking the signal to go out there to the world to say, hey, start producing more face masks, start producing more hand sanitizer, start producing more of the things that people need. So anytime you have the government meddling with prices, you wind up having shortages of goods. And that's a problem that needs to stop. So we need to allow the prices to transmit that information all over the world, so that the world's economy produces the things that the people in the world value the most. And if you block the prices, that doesn't happen.
If you can go back in time, Roger, what do you want to change? What would you change? Would you change anything? You were among the first. You were the one that, as I've read in your business card, it's actually bio. I've just mentioned a few things from what you've done. You've done much more. But what would you change?
Yeah, it's really, really hard to say, because you don't really know how things would have turned out. And so like even, people tell me like, oh, I'm so sorry you went to prison. And prison was not a fun time in my life, but I wouldn't be the same person that I am today if I hadn't gone through that. So if I could undo it and take it all back, would I? Probably not, because who knows where I would be today. It's hard to know. And, life is a journey, and it's really hard to say, what mistakes actually were mistakes and what little things, weren't mistakes. There's a fantastic proverb called the Chinese Farmer. And I implore anybody, go and look that up on YouTube later. And it's like a 1-minute video, but you really have no idea which way these little twists and turns in life are gonna lead you. So it's really hard to say what I would change. But one thing I would change is when the censorship started within the cryptocurrency community. I should have spoken up even louder and more forcefully against it.
You are very loud, Roger, and that's pays so much to you and as a person. I mean, people know how loud you were speaking about that, and that's why you have all our respect. So I don't know how much more you could have done. What do you think you could have done more?
Short of lighting myself on fire somewhere, probably not a whole lot more, but I feel like I should have been even louder about it, as loud as I was. It's not that I was quiet, but I think I underestimated just how effective this censorship was going to be on I think that's why governments love to control the media, right? When they have, when they're able to control it, they're able to set the agenda and shape what people think. And we saw that happen within the cryptocurrency ecosystem as well, which is disappointing.
Please tell me one of the major questions that we ask through this program is how blockchain can really help us going through this crisis and build opportunities. What would be your takeaway here?
Yeah, so the little speech I've been giving about Bitcoin since 2011 is that it allows you to send and receive any amount of money with anyone, anywhere in the world, and there's nothing that anybody can do to stop it. And I think that applies just as well when we're all, locked in our homes due to this coronavirus stuff. You now have the entire world as your market, thanks to cryptocurrencies, where you can do commerce with anybody, anywhere in the country, and you don't need permission from PayPal, you don't need permission from your local bank, you don't need permission from anybody. Bitcoin functions on the laws of mathematics, and no amount of, government regulations or lawmakers passing different bills will change the way the laws of mathematics work. So it's a really, really powerful tool for anyone. So go and find, something service or tool or consulting or whatever you can do online to people, and then, accept cryptocurrencies to pay for people to pay you. And when you need to buy something, go and, pay those other people in cryptocurrency. And the sooner we can have, more competition in the different types of money that people use, the sooner we're going to have money that's of a higher quality for people to use around the world. Competition leads to better quality products at a better price point. And the same is true when it comes to competition in the area of money.
So you are an expert. You're one of the first building fathers of this industry. But what about the newcomers? How can we speak to them? I myself, member of the European Commission Blockchain Observatory and Forum, and we've been talking about this within the Blockchain Observatory and Forum. We've been discussing how we can make this a little bit more closer to the people. Why? Because they simply don't understand. Outside of the very limited, I would say, group, even though it's not a small one, but still very limited compared to the overall numbers, there are some people who are quite well aware of what is going on. And then beyond that, there is a wider group, but it is still very, very small. So how can we make blockchain a little bit closer to people so they understand what it is about and how to take advantage of it?
Yeah, I think in order for people to use it, it has to be useful to them. So we should look for the areas in which cryptocurrencies are actually useful to people. And so one of my very favorite examples of this that works fantastic for people in the US or UK or Japan and a few other countries around the world is this website called purse.io that allows anybody to receive like a 20% discount off every single purchase from Amazon just by using Bitcoin Cash. And that's a really, really powerful tool. So everybody likes saving money. So if there's an item that you would normally want to buy from Amazon that costs $100, you can now buy it for $80 in Bitcoin Cash, and you have $20 left over that you can use to buy more Bitcoin Cash or buy more, something else in your life. Or another fun example for all these people that are on lockdown is I see so many people heading on over to blockchain.poker, and they can play poker with other people around the world using cryptocurrency. And as we've seen in the past, historically, the U.S. government and others have tried to block people from being able to play poker on the internet with their own money. Well, now, thanks to Bitcoin Cash and other cryptocurrencies, people anywhere in the world can play poker with anybody else anywhere in the world. It's amazing to see the hundreds or thousands of people that are online there at any single moment playing poker with people around the world. And I think it's pretty neat. And I think we'll see more and more use cases of people actually using cryptocurrency as money. And if people's point of view is just, I'm going to buy some and then never ever use it and hope the price goes up, you've missed the whole point of cryptocurrency. The goal is to make it useful for people in their own lives.
Roger, I would like to request you to stop here, and I would like to invite someone to the studio, a wonderful lady who has been leading the strategy for one of the major media in the blockchain and cryptocurrency world, the Cointelegraph. Miss Kristina Lucrezia Cornèr, a managing editor of Cointelegraph. Hello, how are you, Christina? Wonderful having you with us.
Hi, Dr. Russev. Thank you so much for your invitation. It's a great pleasure to be with you today. Hi, Roger.
Hello.
It's a true pleasure to have you, dear Christina. Before we enter the studio together with Roger, I would like to have a very, very brief chat with you, if you don't mind, and ask you the same question before you start asking your questions for the next 20 minutes with Roger with us in the studio. My question is the same as the topic of this speech, of this event: how blockchain and cryptocurrencies could be a solution, and can they be a solution for the crisis that we all see and that we will definitely see in the coming months and years?
Well, thank you very much for this question. I would highlight the concept that you already highlighted in the beginning of the talk, that blockchain is representing freedom, is a technology that is accessible, that is transparent, and that can be adopted to different sectors of economy. And I think another point that I would like to highlight is that people in the blockchain sector, they are mainly very visionary. You can see it with Roger. It's people who really like to think of the future and to think of how they can revolutionize the future. They are maybe a little bit crazy sometimes because they believe in things that may seem impossible.
The world belongs to the craziness, no?
Yeah, but I really like this craziness in our industry. And I think that every crisis needs a little bit of craziness in order to be resolved, in order to be survived, and in order for the future to be established again as sunny, prosperous, and free for everybody.
All right, yeah, that's wise words. Are you ready now to start your questioning our guest, Roger?
Yes, I'm very excited to have this opportunity.
Welcome to all of you in our studio.
Hi,
it's
Roger.
Your turn
again.
now, Christina.
Thank you so much. Okay, Roger. So my first question is, I know that you learned about Bitcoin for the first time and blockchain through a radio broadcast, and that caught your attention. So my question is, what exactly did you hear that actually revolutionized your vision of the future, as I just mentioned? Because I think that it made you a little bit crazy about this idea. So what exactly did inspire you?
Yeah, so I guess there were two pieces to that puzzle. So the first piece was reading David Friedman's book. So he's the son of Milton Friedman, the Nobel Prize winning economist. David Friedman wrote a book in 1999 called Future Imperfect. And in this book, Future Imperfect, he had been talking about how people are going to use digital signatures and cyber cash to do commerce on the internet without linking it to their real world identity. And they'll be able to do all sorts of business outside of the scope of, government control. And that just seemed so fascinating to me as a young man reading that. And then, more than a decade later, I was listening to this libertarian radio show called Free Talk Live, and they mentioned Bitcoin in reference to the Silk Road and how people were using Bitcoin to buy and sell illegal drugs on the internet outside of the government's reach. And I wasn't interested in the drugs one bit. I've never, even smoked a cigarette, but it was so interesting to me. I thought, what kind of money are they using for this? And so I Googled Bitcoin. And then when I realized that Bitcoin is, not stoppable, the only way to stop it would be to shut down the entire world's internet and keep it turned off. And now people can use it to buy or sell anything and use it to pay anybody any amount of money, whether big or small, anywhere in the world, to buy or sell anything. this was the most exciting thing that ever happened to me in my entire life, I think, up to that point. So I just started consuming everything I could find on the internet about Bitcoin, and then became the first person with an established business to start accepting it for payments, and then set up bitcoinstore.com back in 2012. Because up to that point, everybody in the media and the mainstream, public was just saying, yeah, Bitcoin, well, you can't buy anything with it other than drugs, so why would I care about it at all? And I gave them the answer to that when we launched bitcoinstore.com. We had more than 500,000 consumer electronics products available at prices mostly cheaper than Amazon. And that was one of the real big turning points, because then at that point, the media was like, wow, you can buy everything. And the public was like, wow, you can buy everything. And it was just amazing seeing how many orders came to that website. And that was the impetus to get other businesses like the Newegg's and the Tiger Directs and, the Microsofts to start having to accept Bitcoin at their businesses. It was getting people to actually use it for payments to buy and sell real things, not just speculation on the future speculation of other speculators like we've seen a bit more of recently.
Very interesting. Thank you so much. I think that my next question will come from your first answer. So you talked about different sectors of adoption. How do you think the crisis could change a little bit the direction of the blockchain adoption? So which sectors maybe get this new impetus with the crisis to get more blockchain involvement, and which sectors maybe could be postponed as the most revolutionary blockchain industries?
And we're already seeing some of it start to happen, I think, with everybody locked at home and bored and lots of people not able to work. That website, blockchain.poker, has just been exploding, and there's more and more people on there every single day playing poker with their cryptocurrencies. And so just online games like that, I think, is a really fantastic example. But then, of course, you also have this disaster around the world with governments just printing up trillions of dollars, or just huge amounts of money just completely out of thin air. And everybody knows that if you counterfeit money yourself in your own, basement, and you get caught, you go to jail, because it's stealing value from everybody else that's using the same form of money that you're counterfeiting. Yet when governments do the exact same thing, they call it fancy names like, economic stimulus package or quantitative easing, but it's the exact same thing as counterfeiting when you do it. And it's detrimental to the world's economy just for the exact same reason when any private person counterfeits, is because it's stealing value from all the other people that are using that same form of money. So that's what makes cryptocurrencies that are usable as currencies so incredibly attractive, because now you no longer have these central banks or centralized institutions that can just whip up a bunch more out of thin air and force people to use it. So competition in every area of the world and every area of the market leads to better quality products and a better user experience. And we're starting to see that happen in the realm of currencies, which traditionally governments only had a monopoly on, and you had to use whatever the currency was that was in the country that you happen to be living in. But now we have these worldwide cryptocurrencies competing on the market, and they're only going to get more and more market share as each month goes by.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm also very excited about this. I think that seems to be an adept, definitely, of the doctrine of economic liberalism. You even quote Frédéric Bastiat on your Twitter account. So the key idea of economic liberalism, as I see, how do you think the economic crisis, the current situation, could influence the development of the free market as we see it now?
Yeah, and we've seen a huge curtailment of the free market, right? Everyone all over the world is literally being told, oh, you're not allowed to go to work, you're not allowed to do much of anything. And anytime the government blocks anybody from trading with anybody else, they're literally making both people worse off, because the only time trade will ever happen between two people is when both people are better off. If you buy some Starbucks coffee, you value the coffee more than you value the money you're giving Starbucks, and Starbucks values the money more than they value the coffee. So after the purchase, both you're richer and Starbucks is richer, because both people have something they value more. If you buy a TV, it's the same story. You value the TV more than the money you paid, and the TV store values the money you paid them more than the TV. Both you and the TV store are better off after the trade happens. So anytime, anywhere in the world, the government makes it harder for people to trade with each other, they're actively preventing the world from becoming as rich of a place as it otherwise would have been. So if we can build tools using cryptocurrencies and blockchains to enable people to trade with people without needing permission and tear down these trade barriers around the world, that literally helps make the world a richer and better place for everybody involved. And so those are some of the things that I'm the most excited about, are these permissionless tools that can't be stopped, that enable people to trade with others. One fun example of that is we launched local.bitcoin.com recently, and it's just a peer-to-peer marketplace that allows anybody in any country for any amount to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash with no KYC whatsoever, because it's a peer-to-peer transaction. The platform itself never has custody of the funds in any way. And so that's a really, really powerful tool. It works in China, it works in Russia, it works in the US, it works everywhere in the world. And platforms like that have never really been able to exist before the invention of cryptocurrency. So it's a really big deal for bringing, as the Europeans would say, economic liberalism, as maybe the Americans would say, free markets and libertarianism sort of thing. But this is a big deal, and it makes the world a better place for everybody, and we should be pushing this forward as quickly as we possibly can.
Thank you, Roger. And I think I'm maybe one of the biggest believers in blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So my question is a little bit provocative for myself as well. Every good technology, every good project has a dark side. So what is the dark side of blockchain? What are the pitfalls? What is the biggest challenge? And is there anything that blockchain could never solve?
Are there things that blockchain can never solve? Sure, there's lots of things that can't be solved in the world yet. Hopefully people, will figure out how to do that in the future. But let's think about the dark side of cryptocurrency. Sure, there's lots of dark side and problems about cryptocurrencies, but let's talk about the internet as well. I think pretty much everybody thinks the internet has been one of the best things to ever happen to humankind, because now anybody can get access to just about any information right there at their fingertips and learn about anything, whether it's from how to change a light bulb or learning calculus online. You can do anything. But some people use the internet for bad things, right? They share videos of children being exploited sexually and all sorts of horrible things that I don't even want to talk about, yet it's out there and people use the internet to do those sorts of things, and that's sad and that's bad. But the internet itself is this wonderfully powerful tool for the world that's the benefits far outweigh the drawbacks. And the same, I think, is true of cryptocurrencies. Some people use cryptocurrencies to do bad things, whether it's extortion or other things. And I don't count buying or selling white powders that make people feel happy as one of the bad things. But there's other things, extortion and other things like that that I do think are bad, or selling stolen property or things like that. But the benefits outweigh it by 1,000,000 to 1, just like the internet itself. The benefits of the internet outweigh the bad things that people do with it by 1,000,000 to 1. So the same is true of cryptocurrencies.
I would like to ask you both now a question. We should not pretend that fraud doesn't happen. Actually, it does happen. And the question for you is, through KYC and through other mechanisms, how do you see it possible in the next few years to really make it make it real? I can give you a very clear example, which I'm sure our viewers will see and will understand. How many of you, for example, you two, are ready to jump into a self-driving car and really rely all your life to that engine and to that computer, to that algorithm that will protect you? Are you 100% ready to do it?
Yeah, I'm not ready yet. I'll tell you that much.
What about you, Christina?
Well, me neither, but I'm a journalist, and I think our biggest responsibility is actually to educate people, to motivate them, to explain them what good there is in the technology we are all believing. So definitely there are pit stops, pitfalls, and different challenges on the way. But we need to learn more, and it comes to be better and better while we learn.
It was a long time ago. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, when Andrew Ng, the founder of many things, Baidu, etc., has been founding his new startup. I think it was Drive AI. That was my first time I'm getting into the car, a self-driving car. I was going to die. I'm very honest. I mean, I'm a brave person. I'm climbing base camp of Everest. I'm jumping from bungee jump, etc. But this thing was like, oh my God, I mean, what is happening? I have a family. So why I'm saying this? I'm saying it because It's algorithms distributed in this case, which could be basically taking care, and not in this time for your life, but could be taking care of your wealth. So now the question is, when are we going to go to a moment of history when we can say you have a relatively very high guarantee of your transactions online? The same with blockchain, very high and reliable solutions that people can trust their lives to. Tough question.
Question for me or Christina?
Oh, I think for both of us.
Roger.
Roger.
So to answer that, I think you can just look at the numbers, right? At the end of the day, feelings are fine, but you have to look at the hard evidence, and the hard evidence should trump the feelings that people have. And so, and even with the self-driving cars, maybe it feels terrifying, but if you look at the numbers, I think they've already surpassed the safeness of a human driver in terms of like the number of accidents per mile driven. And so if you look at the hard numbers, they seem to be safer already. And if they're not safer already, they're going to be shortly. But there's just some things that people just feel this revulsion to. So for example, like there's no logical reason at all, but if I had, Jeffrey Dahmer's sweater and it had been washed, dry cleaned, 1,000 times, and I asked you to put on Jeffrey Dahmer's sweater, you probably still wouldn't want to do that. Not because there's any logical reason, but just, us as human beings, there's just something that feels, repulsive or frightening about that. And maybe there's a little bit of that with the fear of, the unknown with driving cars and these other intelligences. Maybe there's no actual reason for it and the logic and evidence isn't there. But if people feel a certain way, I certainly wouldn't force anybody to wear Jeffrey Dahmer's sweater, and I wouldn't force anybody to ride in a self-driving car if they're scared to do so.
Christina?
Well, I agree with Roger. I would just add that I think the market handles itself, the anticorps, the viruses within its body. And so as far as we are developing and adopting more technology, it becomes purer and there are less actors who play bad rules. As well as technological development is definitely something that never stops. It will always have some challenges within itself, but at the same time, we always go step by step forward.
One step at a time.
To Roger, why the Bitcoin Jesus is so bullish on Bitcoin Cash?
Yeah, I'm so bullish on Bitcoin Cash for the exact same reasons I got so excited about Bitcoin in the early days. And that's because you could buy or sell anything with anyone, anywhere in the world with these fast, cheap, reliable, uncensorable payments. And in 2011, everybody thought Bitcoin was anonymous. It turned out it wasn't even close to being anonymous. But now with Bitcoin Cash, we have this awesome tool called Cash Fusion, where your transaction on Bitcoin Cash can be so private that there's fewer atoms in the entire universe than there are different ways that your coins could have been shuffled up with this protocol called Cash Fusion on top of Bitcoin Cash. So you have super fast, super cheap, super reliable, super private transactions available to anybody in the world without having to give your name or email or tax ID number, and nobody can shut it down or turn it off. And people are starting to use it all over the world for payments. I think that bullish use case right there is the same one that I had for Bitcoin back in 2011. And the sad part about what everybody's calling Bitcoin today, it doesn't have those characteristics that made the early investors and adopters so excited about it early on. Most of those people are now working on things like Bitcoin Cash or Ethereum or other chains. They're no longer working on Bitcoin because Bitcoin's kind of turned into this bunch of speculators speculating on the future speculation of other speculators, or people that still haven't figured out the fact that the project is no longer trying to be cash for the world. And they're saying things about Bitcoin that actually more accurately describe Bitcoin Cash.
You used so many times speculation that you must have been articulated that in front of the mirror for a while until you really make it that crystal clear. What do you expect from this crisis? Do you expect another groundbreaking technology? And this is my last question before I give back the microphone to Christina to also wrap up the questions. And we are already a bit over time. So what are your expectations from the crisis? Do you expect something unexpected? Do you think that we will see something in months, a year? Have you heard of yourself?
So I think, and this isn't a fun thing to predict, but I think the economic lockdown around the world and the economic, contraction that's causing will cause far more people to die than the coronavirus itself. But the difference is that they die in ways that aren't nearly as noticeable. So we were talking about one of my, one of the economists I really look up to, Frederick Bastiat's always talk about the seen versus the unseen. And so with the coronavirus, we can see a bunch of people that are sick in the hospitals, non-respirators, and dying. And that's very clearly seen. But what's not seen is all the people that, lost their job and didn't have enough money, so then they didn't go to get their, annual checkup at the doctor. So they didn't detect the cancer like as early as they otherwise would have. So that person then winds up dying from the cancer that otherwise would have lived because they would have been able to detect it earlier. Or they didn't buy that pack of vitamins because they couldn't afford it because they lost their job. And if they had been taking the vitamin supplements, they wouldn't have gotten that other health ailment they wound up with later. Or they couldn't afford whatever other medicine, or they couldn't afford their gym membership, or they didn't go to the gym because of the lockdown. Then they had a heart attack because they weren't exercising, or they weren't able to get the fresh food that they normally would eat. And so there's all these, millions of people around the world that are going to die because of the economic effects of the lockdown that aren't seen. So you have to take into account both what's seen and what's not seen. What's not seen is that far, far, far more people are likely to die from the economic fallout of the lockdown because of the coronavirus than the coronavirus itself. So that's my prediction.
Great. Christina, back to you with maybe one last question.
Last question. Okay. Can I then?
You have too many.
Well, I can take it as one. Okay. That is important for me.
Let's do 2 questions. Let's go a little bit beyond time.
Perfect.
Let's go for 2 questions. If you all.
Let's do it. Maybe
right.
3 then.
Oh my gosh. Bargaining.
I have a great question from the audience. And I think, Dr. Russev, you mentioned that, but Roger didn't talk about other technologies and blockchain. But could you imagine another groundbreaking technology coming out of this crisis, just like Bitcoin followed the 2008 crash?
Yeah, maybe some genius will be at home and he'll figure out some breakthrough in the algorithm for AI, because I think that's one of the things that people and they're starting to appreciate this, but this is one of the most important things ever. So right now, the smartest things on the entire planet are human minds, right? So the more people you have on the planet, the more these smart brains that we have around to do things. But what happens when we create something that's smarter than the human? So maybe the smartest human on the planet has an IQ of 200, right? But what happens when we create a computer that has an IQ of 200 that then creates a computer with an IQ of 400 and then 1,000 and then an IQ of 10,000 and beyond what humans can even measure? That's the biggest single change in all of human history ever, even more than the blockchain and cryptocurrencies. And this is going to happen here pretty soon. So if anybody hasn't read Ray Kurzweil or followed his work, follow that, pay attention to this. AI is such a big deal. So even if I had 10,000 years here to try and figure out how to do something, there are certain things that my brain isn't capable of doing. Just like if you gave a dog brain 10,000 years, it's never going to be able to understand calculus. It's just simply not capable of understanding the problem. And there's problems in the world that humans aren't even able to understand the problem. But once we create AI, not only is it going to understand the problem, it's going to solve it, and it's going to do all sorts of other things that are just completely beyond the ability of our human brains to comprehend. So I like Ray Kurzweil's optimistic view, though. Rather than the computers just replacing us all, let's merge with the computers. And we're already seeing that. And if you think about it, an iPhone or a Samsung phone is basically like an external memory upgrade. You have all your thoughts and your memories and people in there. And next up, and everybody has it with you all the time. Why do you need to carry this in your pocket? The next step is let's start implanting it directly into your brain, and then people can merge with the computers. So rather than the computers just replacing all of us humans, let's try and merge with them and go along for the journey. So that's my crazy thought for the day.
I like it. Thank you so much. Okay, I will use this opportunity to wish all my colleagues dancers, because I'm a journalist but also a dancer, in the Happy International Dance Day.
Happy International Dance Day.
April 29. And I have a quote from Friedrich Nietzsche, who, by the way, didn't believe in free will, but we do. So the quote says, "Those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who couldn't hear the music." So my question to you both, what is the music? What is that melody that could help people who dance the blockchain dance to be heard and to be understood?
That's such a good question that I think I'll have to reflect on it a bit longer before I would have even a semblance of a decent answer for that. But fantastic question. I wish I had a better answer for you, but I'll be thinking about that for the rest of today, I think. Dr. Russev, any ideas for such a fantastic question?
One thing is for sure. I believe that music is the language of a heart full of love. And that's where all comes together. Because at the end of the day, why we do what we do and why we put all that efforts all together to make things like what you do, supporting so many companies and making difference in the world. Christina being so committed to her own Cointelegraph community and spreading the word about great opportunities and projects, and us at WEBIT being committed to creating that better, desirable future, if it's not for love. So, Christina, such a wonderful wrap-up of these discussions. We started with blockchain and crypto, and then we ended up where we all know we will. It's not about technology. It's about the people. And it's about love and happiness. And everything else should serve these very genuine values to make people happier and really live a better future. I can't say enough how grateful I am to both of you for being with us, spending precious time of yours to share your vision, your ideas, and the most important, your love, with all these thousands of people with us on that program of WEBIT on blockchain. Promise us you're going to come back?
For sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity today.
Thank you so much. I will be seeing you soon and appreciate again your time. We're moving next to the next part of WEBIT, where we shall be looking for great startups. We shall be listening to their pitches, and one of them will receive a free opportunity to join us at WEBIT and to jump into the biggest ever startup challenge in the world, the Founders Games, produced by WEBIT with $1 million award. And Roger, I use the opportunity to invite you to stay with us if you still have time, but we can talk about this later. Thank you all for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.